Thanks for coming today for our free AI Bootcamp. I'm pretty excited to be talking about this. I've been discussing AI and trying to teach people what I believe sort of to be the reality of it based on, a lot of research using it for as long as it's really been out, quite frankly. My name's Justin Chapman. I work here at CanScribe College. And today we're just going to be discussing how to use AI effectively. That's the goal here today. If you have any questions at all as we're going through, please feel free to type them into the chat and I'll answer them as I can. So let's get going. Let's talk about what we're going to learn today. So I really want to allow people to walk away with some skills that you can start using, right after we're done here or while we're going through. Maybe you've got some AI open and you'll follow along here. But the first skill I really want to teach people is how to create strong prompts. This is really the fundamental aspect of efficiency in AI is a really, really good prompt. AI isn't as magical as a lot of people make it seem, if we're being honest. And so you really have to put some work into it to make it do the work for you. The second skill is refining your output. So no prompt you make will ever be perfect. It's about making sure we have a really strong prompt and then knowing what to do next to get the output you're actually looking for. I want to then throw some quick stats at you about AI and AI use that are really important and really highlight where AI is and where I believe it's going. And then the third skill is we're actually going to go in and use the AI. It's not just going to be me presenting something to you. I'm going to show you how to functionally use it in ChatGPT, which is what we'll be going through today. So when it comes to the first skill, creating a good prompt, you want to use the CPR framework. And what that is context, parameters, and role. Those three aspects make up a really, really good prompt, and not using these three concepts really creates failed responses back. AI is really good at creating information that isn't always necessary. And so it's really important to give it the context, give it parameters, and then give it an actual role on who it's speaking about, or from, I should say. So context. You want to refine your objective. AI, as I said before, is not as smart as people, especially on LinkedIn and the internet, like to make it seem. It doesn't know your business, your goal, the situation, what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go. It doesn't know your history. And so it's really important that you give it that information. And so when you give a weak prompt, you'll see something like write a post about shopping local. So AI has to guess who it's for, why the post matters, and the goal. When you say post, do I mean a Facebook post, a LinkedIn post, a blog post, a Twitter post? Like, it can be anything, and it has to guess all of that information. The large majority of people who are using AI are giving prompts like this as if it was Google. AI is really good at doing research and research for you, but with a weak prompt like this, you're not going to get accurate information. It will make up a bunch of stuff and provide you stuff. And I'm purposefully using the word stuff because it's just sort of random. It's not directed. It's not going to give you anything of substance. So a strong prompt is, I'm a content creator in a small clothing company. I want to post to LinkedIn to help people understand how shopping local makes a real difference in community. So AI now knows about the business, where you're writing the content on LinkedIn, and where to go with the content. You've given it a scope. Now we're going to build on the strength of that prompt, but it's really important to give a ton of information. So when we're talking about a LinkedIn post, just in this case here, usually you want a LinkedIn post to be about 300 words or so. In the first one, it seems like it's really fast, right? You wrote a couple of words and you're getting a bunch back. But in our strong prompt, you still wrote less than 300 words, and you're going to get a higher quality post. So there's this sort of disconnect between people wanting to use AI and the reality of how good it is. And it's not this like perfect concept. It's not this perfect system that's going to create exactly what you want from little to no information. So it's really important to define the context. Now we get into the parameters, and this is how you define the boundaries and really help it understand the content itself. So a weak prompt might be write an email announcing a new service. We can all imagine what we just covered there. This doesn't know anything about anything, quite frankly. And so a strong prompt is going to be writing a 200-word announcement email introducing our new bookkeeping service to small business owners, use a confident but friendly tone, include 3 benefits, and a clear call to action. So we included the length, right? That's super important because AI will just start writing to what it thinks is correct. If you don't say, I need this to be 200 words, it might write 1,000. It might write 2 sentences. It has no concept of what it's actually trying to produce. The next is format. Do you want bullet points? Are you trying to tell a story? Is it an email? Does it need any call to actions? Is it a blog post? What is actually being developed here? And so in our strong prompt, we said, hey, we're writing an email. In our weak prompt, we also included that. But we didn't include the 200-word side of it, which is a key point because I'm sure everyone's received an email that's 1,000 words and you're like, I'm not reading this. If it has no bullet points, you're probably going to skip over a lot of the content, especially if it's really long. And so defining that in the prompt is really, really important. And then the tone and depth. How should this be written? Should it be conversational? Should it be professional, friendly? Any sort of extra information you can give on that is vital to the success of the actual content you're getting out. Now, if you're writing something, and I put in the strong prompt there to small business owners, because that helps it understand, sort of wording to use. It also gives the idea that it's for someone with a deeper knowledge on bookkeeping services, for example. And so that's another aspect you can add is write this for beginners or write this for someone who's got an advanced knowledge. Where you'll see something like that being really important is if you're writing a blog post, for example, who are you actually writing that for? You want to say, like, this is for an advanced knowledge group of people. In your business, for example, if you're an administrative assistant even, and you're using AI to summarize notes or do meeting minutes, for example, you can really bump up those sorts of things by adding in, like, yeah, everyone that here has a really strong understanding. Like if you're working at a law firm, let's say, and you're doing the meeting notes for them, you want to add in, like, I am giving this information to lawyers, so let's make sure this is really refined, really advanced, no sort of high level glazing over things. Let's really break this down for them. And so adding all the parameters like this really will help you get a very, very strong response back. Now, role. Who is AI in this case? So a weak prompt might be give my company marketing advice. And a strong prompt would be something more along the lines of, you're an external consultant looking at my business. What would you tell me I need to do to improve my visibility? Way stronger. You're saying, hey, I need you to come at it from this perspective. Other examples you can give is act as a skeptical investor, act as a branding expert, a hiring manager, a psychologist, act as a conversation copywriter, an entrepreneur, anything you can think of. The perspective you want it to be coming from is really important. This helps give context, which is the first thing we talked about. And it really lets the system know what you're trying to do. It's funny how small of a prompt, or an add-on to a prompt, I should say, act as a skeptical investor is, but how much it actually provides. It lets it know what level of knowledge it needs to come at from. Is it specific? Is it broad? If it's broad, and this is part of the problem with weaker prompts, if it's a really broad knowledge, it has to try and touch on a lot of things, trying to really quickly talk and summarize from a whole bunch of different points. Whereas if you say something like a skeptical investor, if you're trying to grow your business, for example, it knows to come at it from someone who's trying to purchase your business. It understands you're potentially trying to sell a piece or your whole business, and it's going to come at it from a finances standpoint. It's going to ask questions to you that you maybe never thought to ask yourself. And so it's really, really important to add something as simple as these 5 words. So now, putting all of CPR together, before CPR, we would write something like, write a blog post about shopping local. And afterwards, we are going to write, you are an external marketing consultant who specializes in writing SEO compliant blog content. Write a 700-word blog post about the benefits of shopping local and supporting local businesses. Include 3 benefits and dispel 2 common myths about shopping local. So when you put it all together, I've highlighted here so you can see what the color differentiation is. Context is in yellow, parameters in pink, and the role is in red. So I've provided it the role at the very beginning, and I've also given it snippets of context as well as 3 separate parameters, basically things I want to happen. And so when you expand on your prompt like this, you're going to get a extraordinarily different blog post, shockingly, because it doesn't know any of this extra information. And that might seem obvious, but as I've said before, when we're using AI, it's not as good as people on LinkedIn think or say. Maybe they don't think it, but they say it anyways. And it's also not as scary to use as a lot of people make it out to be. When you're using AI to do something, so in this example, we're talking about creating a blog post. If you're not in marketing, that's totally fine. The average blog post takes about an hour or 2 to create, as long as you have an idea. Part of the hardest part about creating blog content, quite frankly, is actually thinking of the idea and then where to go with it. But once you have that, it takes about an hour or 2 to create it. You basically have to write, about 1,000 words of content. You have to create imagery. You have to think of your SEO keyword. There's a lot that goes into it, but that matters a little bit less when you're talking with AI. The problem is what had happened in the past is we went from, okay, I have to spend 2 hours to create this blog post to, well, I can get 1,000 words put out really quickly by just giving a quick little prompt to ChatGPT. And that's true. You can use the write a blog post about shopping local to get the blog post. It's just not going to rank well with Google. It's not going to help your website really at all, quite frankly. It's just stuff that's on your website. Whereas when you're giving the really good prompt, you are going to have really detailed, really high ranking content. And this goes not just for website compliance, this goes into creating strong emails. Sometimes you'll give a prompt that's actually bigger than an email might actually be that you're sending out. And you do that because you just maybe don't know how to word it. I do this all the time, quite honestly. I'll go to write an email and I go, I just hate the way that I've worded this. And so I'll provide that email to ChatGPT and say, this is what I'm trying to do. This is the message and tone I'm trying to convey. Can you help me rewrite this? And usually my prompt is bigger than the actual email I end up sending, but the quality of the email improves dramatically. The messaging is way better. And so that's really, really, really important. Now, another thing I'll say, and this takes away from business at all, I want to step back and go personal. I use AI for cooking all of the time. I love cooking. I love trying to cook new things, but sometimes you're just like writer's block or cooker's block or whatever it might be. And so I'll go into AI and say, hey, I want to make enchiladas, let's say. And it'll go, great, here's your recipe. But then it's probably going to give you a bunch of items to cook with that you might not have. And so if you provide the context what you have, some parameters. I need to have this dinner cooked inside of an hour, and I have these 10 items. Can I make enchiladas from this? And it's going to go, yep, here you go. Here's your list. Here's your examples, everything that you need to get going. And so all of these things we're talking about aren't just for business. They're also for personal sides as well. And quite frankly, it's just the rule for when you're using AI. You need to basically be as specific as humanly possible and provide as much information as possible. So for refining your prompts, this is the second skill here. You need to really create clarity. You need to change formatting where you see it to be necessary and deepen the insight. And that one's really, really relevant when you're trying to make it not fluffy, make it not LinkedIn words, as I like to say. I'm sure anybody on LinkedIn has been on there and gone, what did this person even say? We don't want to do that. And so that's where you're deepening what it's actually saying, providing meaning and value with the words. So when you're refining your prompt, you really want to highlight unclear sections and ask for better explanations or better examples. And something I'll show you here in a bit is you can actually highlight sections in ChatGPT and say, can you clarify or expand on this? And it will do that in a sentence or two sentences or whatever you want it to do. And so it's really important to read what was produced and not just copy and paste it out. It's going to do a decent job. You can make it do a great job in just a little bit more time. Changing the format, this is really important too. Often you'll give a really good prompt and you forget stuff. It happens all the time. I do it all the time. And you go, you know what, this is too wordy. It's 10 paragraphs of content. I need to make this inviting at the very least. And so you want to clarify and change the format with, hey, can you add a few bullet points? Can you make this a step-by-step list? Can you provide examples as to why this is important? I want the example to look like this. And then deepening insight. I do this all the time. I say, I lied. I'd like it to be no more than 700 words because point X and Y need to have more insight. Can you add more information on those? You can change it as much as you want, as little as you want. You can make it go back. You can have it rewrite certain sections and then type back into it and say, okay, now put it all together for me. And it'll write that. So you don't have to scroll up and down and find the different sections and copy and paste what you had done and updated and all that sort of stuff. So it's really, really important to refine your prompt. Now, the key thing I always like to talk about, and I've already talked about it here, but I'm just going to keep throwing it out there, is the amount of time that you're saving on the task. So it's really important to go back and think, like, how long would this have actually taken me to do and discover and find? And even if it's something like research, which AI does a very good job at as well, if you think about how long it's going to take you to do research on really anything, like, you're going to sit there and go, this probably take me a few hours at least to do a good job. Unless it's like a really big project, then it might take you tens of hours or hundreds of hours, quite frankly. And so when you're using AI, you have to stop and think for half a second and go, how much time is this saving me, to make sure that you're spending the time to refine and define your prompts. So I'm going to throw some stats at everybody here. 66% of AI users do not verify the results. And what that means is the large majority of people, 2/3, are basically putting in a quick prompt, copying and pasting it, and walking away. They're not checking to see if it lied, if it made stuff up. They're not checking for grammar and spelling, which AI shockingly makes a lot of errors in. They're going, good enough, see you later, which is not great. I'm sure most people on Facebook or LinkedIn, again, whatever it might be, you receive emails even, and you go, yeah, that's AI. Like, most people have some concept of what an AI post or content actually looks like. And so it's really, really important to make it not that for people, because if the average person with almost no training on using AI can still see, like, hey, that doesn't look real, they're going to ignore it. And the large majority of people who notice AI skip over it. They don't even read it. And so it's really, really important to verify and read over what you've got. So next is 51.6% of medical emergencies were recommended to stay home. So this was a really amazing study that was just released last month. ChatGPT, a large group of doctors basically created a bunch of healthcare scenarios, medical emergencies, and whatnot, put them into the ChatGPT health system, which wasn't implemented in Canada. It was just the United States. But it's relevant in Canada because a lot of people use AI to check in on certain things with their health. And so when they actually tested it, they had 10,000 different medical scenarios. And the large majority of them were medical emergencies where the person needed to go to the hospital. 51.6% of the time, ChatGPT was not recommending people go to the hospital. It was saying, you should stay home and rest. Just drink a little bit more water. Put some polysporin on it. Different things like that. One of my, I don't know if favorite examples is the right word to use here, but it was people were going into ketosis, diabetic ketosis, and it said, stay home and have some sugar and you'll be fine. Like, this person is, in the reality of it, is potentially hours or minutes away from passing into a coma, and it's saying stay home. And so the reason I bring this example up, it is obviously very extreme and quite frankly a life and death situation. But the reason I say that is because it's not as accurate as we think it is. I mean, literally over 50% of the time, it's making errors on healthcare. Can we attribute that to say it's making errors 2% of the time, essentially? Everywhere else? No, because things are obviously less technical in other areas than healthcare, and a doctor knows which questions to ask better than an AI system. And Sam Altman and Elon Musk, the AI creators, don't like to say that, but it's the reality of the situation. So it's really, really important that, again, I know I said this before, but we verify our results. 44% of employees upload sensitive information to AI that they shouldn't be. So if you're using the free version of AI, which most people are, or the base model, basic, often they're called different things, but like the first cheapest version of AI, anything you put in there is being used for training the AI systems. So if you upload personal information, employee contracts, any proprietary information that you have or your company has, you're going to be giving that to the AI system. Now, is it publicly available to everybody? Can they go, hey, what did certain people upload to you? No, it's not going to work that way, but it is on their database now. And as I'm sure everybody's seen, cyber attacks happen, things get stolen all of the time, and that's not good. You don't want to be uploading proprietary information to AI unless you have an enterprise account or an account that strictly says, we do not train on your information. If you do not have that, and it should say right at the bottom, and I'll show you where it says that, you are likely breaking employers' policies and procedures, which is not good, but B, you're giving away information from the company, which obviously we don't want to be doing. Now, this isn't a stat, but it's something worth mentioning. ChatGPT just announced that they're going to be slow rolling ads in free versions and basic versions of the platform. Now, they have publicly stated that these aren't going to affect your results. I don't know if I believe that. I have no proof to back it up that it was going to affect the results, but it really makes sense if they're going to follow similar models to Google and Meta and things like that. So I have a hard time believing that that won't change. So just be aware of using free versions. I'm not saying this isn't me sitting here saying everyone needs to pay for this. Not at all. I'm just saying you should keep that in mind as you're getting answers and you start seeing ads. Now, it's not actually rolled out in Canada yet, as they're slow rolling it. It's only in a few states in the United States right now, but it's something to keep your eyes open for. You're going to start seeing it. They do legally have to identify what an ad is, so you will know. But when you see those, maybe second guess it. So now I want to go into the actual system and using AI. So something, you'll see a prompt I already have in here. I'm going to ask you some questions. I want to make sure you treat as a singular example and not use information we've discussed in previous chats. So when you're using a paid version of an AI system, it has a memory. It remembers what you've provided it, all the information. And so because we're in a situation right here where I need to not have it pull extra information, I need to add in that prompt before I can add in anything else. And this goes into the first part of CPR, right? This is context. I am providing context. I need you to look at me as if we've never chatted before, so I can give specific information to you without pulling extra data. Now, really quickly, it does say right at the bottom here, ChatGPT can make mistakes. OpenAI doesn't use CanScribe workspace data to retrain any of its models. So I had said about that because I'm using a paid enterprise version. We don't have to worry about any of our information being shared publicly, pseudo-publicly on their database. And it also has a warning, ChatGPT can make some mistakes. So if they're willing to put that right there for you, you should definitely know to verify the information. So really quickly, I have a goal here of, put it in here so everyone can see it. My goal is to write an email asking for a meeting to discuss a promotion with your boss, trying to think of something relevant. So a poor prompt, I should say, will look something like this. Write an email asking for a meeting to discuss a promotion with your boss. Enter. Here it is. It's an email. We'll let everyone read through that. It's fine. It's okay. It's really missing a lot because in the reality of the situation, there's always more information to something as simple as this, right? And so now what I need to do is I need to refine my prompt. I need to make it better. And so I've got this here. I've added this as context. Now you can already see the difference in length, right? We have 2 paragraphs and then a line. We've got 3 paragraphs, basically 4 paragraphs here, right? You're already making it seem better. Now what I want to do is refine this further. I want to make the tone confident and professional, not hesitant, position the meeting as a discussion about growth and contribution rather than just asking for a promotion. Now, a big part of it you're seeing here is this first line. Try and zoom out, but it makes it a little hard to read, but it really sounds better if we're being honest. If you're the employer and you're receiving this opening line versus this one here, it seems like this person's going to quit. That's how that reads. And same with this one. This seems as though you're going to quit. You don't want to scare your employer versus the conversation. This one here, right here at the end especially, really adds value. It really changes the context and how it's more likely going to be received by the employer. Now, one thing in this that's really missing is why this discussion is sort of necessary. Why do we need to have this conversation? And so what's really important, and this is maybe just, this isn't AI advice, what I'm about to say, this is advice if you're ever actually asking for a promotion. You should have reasons. You should have really good facts. You should have figures. You should have efficiencies you've implemented. Whatever it is you're doing, you should have rationale as to why you deserve a promotion, why you deserve a raise, right? And so it's really good to add in maybe some stats that you might have. And so I'm going to add this extra prompt in here. Now we've got a unalarming first paragraph. You've got a quick summary on what you've been doing. You've got a quick stat on how good of a job you've done. And you've got a closing part, right? This comparatively to the first part, I'll give it a couple seconds here for everyone to take a quick read through here. And then I'll scroll to the very first one. Apologies if you haven't read through it all the way. Go to the first one here. The difference between these two emails is night and day, even though the length of them isn't all that different. And now if you look at all the prompts that I gave here, it took a lot of prompts to get where I needed to be, right? But what should happen is you should just give one long prompt and really think about it. And so what your long prompt should look like is something like this. Giving a strong prompt like this at this length, even though, again, this is quite literally longer than the email itself, will help you create the tone, the professionalism, help update the messaging. And when I put this in, you'll notice I added the name of my boss, right? I also added in a piece of context here, right here, right? I added in this part. We have a great relationship. We're friendly. Don't want to ignore that we're friends and make it, too overly professional. And then we get this. Again, we've got 1, 2, 3 paragraphs and a line. Reading through this quickly, that honestly looks very, very good. And we wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. 5 paragraphs to get 3 in a sentence. It seems like a lot of extra work, but often trying to write this email yourself will take much longer than writing the prompts to get there. It's so hard to sort of think creatively, especially in a example like this, asking for a promotion. And so when we're creating these prompts, to summarize, we have to add really, really good context. We have to make sure that we have the parameters in here as well. And we need to give it a role. What are we trying to do, and how can we get the best possible answers? Does that make sense to everybody? How to actually provide the information to AI to get a good answer? Awesome. So now, because we've got a request for an example, I would do this. Now here's we've got a request to create an ad for a rental property. Can I do an example? Absolutely. So to do that successfully, I need an absurd amount of information, right? I need to know how many beds, how many baths. Is it in a suite? Is it a legal suite? Where is it located? What are the amenities around? All those sorts of things to create a really good ad. So again, I can do this. I'm going to copy and paste our post, right? Our question. Here's a prompt. It's fine. It is very generic. It gives you a lot of areas where you can add in and edit information. But now the nice thing is it's going to give you these prompts. And now it will always do this at the end because it needs more context. It knows this is fine, but we can make it better. So write a high performing ad that attracts better tenants. Create a luxury style listing, format it specifically for Facebook Marketplace. Again, these are all contextual pieces that we didn't add to it that we need to. One thing that, and the reason I asked for how many beds and baths, for example, like this is in here, great, right? We can copy and paste this, fine. Or we can edit this, right? Maybe it's 3 beds, 2 bath. We go ahead and edit that. But it's also 2 bed, 1 bath here. It's also 2 bed right here. And I'm looking through, does it say bath? No, it doesn't. Okay. Does it say it anywhere else? It's really easy to make a mistake on editing when we're editing ourselves rather than just providing the information up front. So if up front we say, and I'll do this again, do it live here for everybody. Because I'm in Kelowna. Spelling. New building. What's the one beside us here? 1 Water Street. No pets. Access to a beautiful gym. There we go. More context, better content. Maybe you want it to be longer. Maybe you want it to be shorter. Everything that you can think of needs to go into your initial prompt. So again, I am, adding 1 prompt at a time here, which is a fine way to do it. But the best way to do it is to give a really, really good prompt up front. You can get there. It just usually takes longer. If you're ever looking to expand your knowledge on AI and, how to use it, if you want to get better at it, and quite frankly, just a little bit of training puts you into the top 40% of people who know how to use AI, quite frankly. And with courses like these that we have available, AI for entrepreneurs, AI literacy, AI business administration, AI and human resources, and generative AI for business, these will push you in the top 10% of people who know how to use AI. It's quite frankly that simple. Like 1 course can put you above and beyond on using AI. So we have these available. I thought I'd throw them out there. But now I'll answer some questions. Awesome. We're at our hour mark here. I'll send everyone off. I'll say thank you very much for attending. We will be doing more of these in the future, so keep an eye out in your email. Other than that, have a good rest of your day.